Thank you all for coming. My name's Rashid Koppel, and I know that everybody's busy, and I appreciate the fact that you've taken this time out to come and work on your business and get some ideas of how you can market and sell more effectively. So why listen to me? Now, there are actually two of us, but I changed the slide because my better half isn't here today. She's off in Switzerland. But I have a engineering and IT background, and I spent about 20 years in corporate IT with some of the really big players in town. Name one of them, I probably worked for one of them, and also a number of years in consulting. You know, technical, sales, senior management, sold a lot of stuff over the years. And for the last 13 years or so, we've been working with SMEs, effectively helping them grow. And I'll tell you the story about how we started. Essentially, the last organization I was with in 2000, tried to get a whole bunch of venture capital. They actually had a blue chip business. They sold their software to every major bank and every major building society and every major insurance company in this country. And they decided that they wanted to rework their software and get venture capital, and after a year of trying to do this, they couldn't. They failed. And my last act was firing, I think it was about 25 of my staff, and closing the door on that part of the business. And essentially, left a six-figure corporate job and said, well, what are we going to do? And at the age of 40, I was now either too old in the IT industry, too experienced, as in too general, I was too senior, so I wasn't specific enough to get another job. No one wanted to hire me. And at that point, you really needed to be a real technical specialist in some micro area before you got anywhere. Yeah, it moves really fast. And so we looked around and I said, okay, well, what's the next best thing to do? Well, become a consultant, right? And so, the income is stopped, the bills keep going up. My wife, who is Swiss, had only come out to Australia in 1999. And she'd also come from a six-figure corporate job running major travel organizations in Switzerland, and had to start from the bottom, what it's like when you come to a new country. And so we had no income. Excellent. And as you watch the savings sort of go down and the bills keep going up, and we go, well, what are we going to do? Let's get a part-time job, she says to me. And I say, right, well, I don't really want to go and stack shelves at Woolies because it's one of the one things I hate doing. So she said, well, what else are we going to do? She said, well, how about we go house cleaning? I said, fine. She said, but I'll only do it if you come with me. I said, okay. So we went and we signed up with Dial & Angel, who are Australia's biggest agency when it comes to home care, and went out and cleaned houses for $15 an hour. And when we could get $20 because we took our own stuff, we get $20 an hour. And there was a point to this story because one of our biggest early clients came off a cleaning job. And that one up there, Horace Coulter. Horace Coulter is a huge multinational in Europe. I mean, they're a billion-dollar company in Europe, but quite small. The dental component is quite small in this country. And I happened to be cleaning the managing director's house. He was a Scottish guy, expat, and we just started chatting about business, and as you do. And I said, I have this consultancy, and after I'd cleaned his house, because his wife was flying in from Scotland the next day, and he needed a clean house, as they do. And a week later, I put on a suit and went to see him. I had a chat and put him on my newsletter list. Okay, so I have a newsletter that comes out once a week, and it's come out once a week without fail for the last 11 years, whatever it is. And a year went by, and I get this phone call from his national sales manager saying, Rashid, we have a problem with our sales team. Can we come and see you? So they trotted over, and one thing led to another, and we did some sales training and basically started working with the organization and actually ended up on his board. And a year later, and at that point, he was doing about $3 million a year turnover in Australia, and he wanted to get to about 10. We hired a few people, we fired a few people, we rejigged a whole bunch of stuff. And basically after a year, we parted company, we kept in touch. 2 or 3 years later, I get this email. Oh, Rashid, we made the $10 million mark, thank you very much. I said, oh, that's really fantastic. A few more years go by, and Barbara is becoming an Australian citizen. And we're at the citizenship ceremony at Ku-ring-gai Council in Gordon, and she's looking at the guest list, you know, being the sticky beak she is. And she says, oh, Ken, Lorraine, 3 kids. Can only be one Ken, Lorraine, 3 kids. And sure enough, it's him. He's buggering off to New Zealand and thought he'd get his Australian citizenship before he did, so he could come back. and we have a chat, and he walks up and he says, oh, Rashid, thank you very much. We actually did 11.5 million. And it was, I firmly believe it was because of the work we did with you when we started all of this. I said, that's, how good is that, okay? Pixel Perfect Pro Lab, when we started working with them, they are a photographic lab that only works with the trade. So they only work with professional photographers. So you take a digital photograph, you need to get it printed somewhere. So if you're a wedding photographer or a portrait photographer, you've got to get this thing printed. When they started, there was massive competition in this industry in Sydney, massive competition. They bought a $500,000 printer, which I kid you not was the size of a small truck that sits in the room. It's a big laser printer. And they had 5 directors at the time, all top of the line professional photographers, you know, some of Australia's best photographers, but they were going backwards because they did not know how to sell, they did not know how to market. A few years later, they are today the only lab still standing that's profitable. The managing director basically bought out all the other partners. And we'll talk about some of the other stuff that we got to do with them a bit later. Kempe is another European multinational, very large in Europe. They sell welding equipment, or they manufacture welding equipment. And interestingly enough, we worked with them for about a year, and they became the second most profitable subsidiary behind Germany worldwide in a recession, where
but welding should be doing good.
Chinese imports at a third of the price were killing the market. Okay? And one of the first things we did with them was we helped them with a trade show, and they had the second highest month ever in the history of the company because of that trade show. And when we say trade show, we're talking about spending $100,000 on a trade show. Okay, so this is not going out to a little itty-bitty stand. You know, this is big bucks. So that's some of the stuff we've done. And over the last 13 years, we worked with, I counted about 33 different industries. And the reason I put that up is because I have people saying, well, my business is different. And I can tell you one thing, your business is not different. Every business is the same. You've got to get customers, you've got to give good customer service, you've got to get them over the line. You know, the same stuff happens no matter what you do, no matter what the business is. You know, every business has the same issues. So today we're going to talk about 2 of these aspects. In our longer presentations, we also do a fair bit on cash flow. But today we're going to talk mainly about marketing, and I'll do a little bit about sales. But if you notice, it's all about implementation. You've got to have a strategy, you've got to have a vehicle, but you've really got to implement. And if there's one thing that I would say over the years that, you know, we started off as business coaches, and then we became marketing coaches, and then we realized that people didn't actually implement anything. And then we moved from coaching people and telling them what to do to actually doing it for them. Because we figured that if we didn't do it for them, they would never actually do it, and they'd never actually get a result. So today we're going to talk about marketing and sales. The way I look at marketing and sales is marketing and sales are 2 sides of the same coin. Marketing is getting them to the door. Sales is getting them over the threshold and consummating the deal, and then keeping them, hopefully, for a lifetime. This is one of the key concepts. The importance of marketing. You are not in the business of whatever business you're in. You're not in the business of selling boat alarms. You're not in the business of selling gym memberships, okay? You are in the business of marketing your business, because without getting that mind shift and learning the fact that you have to market your business, you will starve, because the world is full of great, you know, mousetraps. You know, there's always somebody inventing something out there that's going to be a fantastic product, but unless everybody knows about it, you're never going to make a sale. Now, the other thing that I always get people saying as well, you know, I say to them, who's your market? And they say, well, everybody's my market. You know, financial planners are a great one for this. You know, they say to me, and I have a lot of financial planner clients, and they'll say, oh, you know, I want a high net worth individual who is a senior executive, and I'm going, yeah, we all want that, okay? The reality is, if you can narrow it down and say, this is my very specific marketplace, So it's not all boat owners, maybe. It's maybe luxury boat owners who have a particular type of boat, and you could help them reduce their insurance premium by having this because you've done a deal with the insurance company, for argument's sake, okay? With you, it could be a very specific type of market that's looking for personal training or fitness. Yeah. I mean, in the city, you have a gay market. You know, you have gay gyms, for instance, and you have, you know, there are all sorts of things. You know, you pick a niche, and you go for that. Okay. So your goal, all your marketing efforts must be designed to do one thing and one thing only: get qualified prospects to call you. Why do you want them to call you?
Because they've done the research and they're more likely to buy.
Exactly. Somebody who calls you you have double the chance of converting them into a client than if you went and made a call to them. So if they call you, you are the authority figure. If you set yourself up as being this person, that you are the go-to person in whatever industry you're in and whatever sub-niche you're in, then people will naturally want to gravitate towards you. And this is the other thing that I see with consultants all the time. And I just witnessed it with somebody else the other day. You know, you first you sow, then you reap, okay? So you have to do the work now, but you will get the result further down the line. So a lot of consultants, especially contractors, especially in the IT industry, you know, they'll get a job, they'll have the job for a year, maybe 2 years, and they won't actually do any form of marketing. They won't keep their contacts up. They won't do any of those sorts of things. And when that job suddenly finishes, and sometimes they know it's going to finish and they still haven't done anything. Other times the company just goes, hey, we've got to cut costs. Well, who goes? The contractors all go. Okay? And then you're going, oh, now what do I do? It's too late. You've got to keep marketing. You've got to realize that consistent and constant marketing is the key. And the thing is, you've got to market when times are good. This is the other thing. People go, oh, I'm doing really well. I don't need to market. Big mistake. Believe me, we've all been there. I can guarantee we've all been there. I've been there, okay? When times are good is when you actually have money that you can actually put into marketing. When times are bad, where's the money going to come from? And it's when you need to be doing the marketing, you don't have any money. So the marketing triangle. There are 3 critical aspects to marketing. You need to have a market. That's pretty obvious. And you need to be able to narrow that market down and actually define that market very, very closely. You need to have a message that is actually going to resonate with that market. So what is going to make that market want to sit up and take notice and say, hey, I'm interested in that. I've got that particular pain, or I want that particular thing, and I want it from you. And the last one where people really fall down is the media, because people can say, look, I want high net worth individuals I'll give you an example, okay? So I had a client, he works for one of the big investment houses, and he said, hey, I want to target high net worth individuals in the eastern suburbs. And I said, oh, great, fantastic. How are you going to get to them, okay? He says, oh, I'm going to buy a list. I said, fine. And what are you going to send them? He says, well, can you write me a letter? I said, I can write you a letter. I said, what are you going to do with this thing? And how are you actually going to make sure that you are targeting people who are likely to want what it is that you offer? That's the biggest key. You know, so I can say that my market is one-eyed, you know, little people with hands behind their backs or something equally ridiculous like that. But if I can't actually identify where they are, I don't have a hope in hell. So I can have a great message, I can have a great market, but if I can't get to them, this isn't going to work very hard. So with your target market, you need to understand who they are exactly. What do they want? What do they want to avoid? What problem do you solve? And can you get in front of them profitably? And that last word, profitably, okay? Because if it's going to cost you a whole bunch of money in advertising or whatever, and there's not enough money in the deal for you, then there's no point in doing this. So the fundamental question always is, you are not alone. Everybody has competition. There is no such thing as no competition. And in fact, I'd go so far as to say, if there was no competition, you don't have a viable business. Yeah? Okay? Because in today's world, everybody's done everything. Okay? So why would someone buy from you over your competition, or even more importantly, do nothing at all? Because the hidden question here is, 50% of sales, actually, it's not that you lose to the competition, it's actually that they do nothing.
Yes.
It is very often easier to keep the status quo because the pain isn't big enough than to actually decide that you're going to do something because it's going to cost you money, time, pain, whatever it is.
But also in
Okay?
this marketplace now, people still spend, but they very much choose what they
Yeah.
double check about 3 or 4 times before they're going to spend.
Absolutely. So if anybody says to you that there is a recession, there's a depression, there's a whatever else, and people aren't spending money, that's crap.
That is
Sorry,
total-
that is
everyone's
absolute total.
spending.
Everybody is spending.
But they
We
very much-
exactly. We all buy what we want.
Yeah.
We don't necessarily buy what we need. We may need fitness, we may need all of these things, but we will go out and buy the junk food because it makes us feel good. Well, some people will. Nobody in this audience. So how do you stand out from the crowd? Okay? So this is the fundamental question. What makes you unique? What do you do that everybody else doesn't, and do you articulate it? Okay? Now, the truth is, most of us do exactly the same thing that everybody else does. There is no unique. But most of us don't actually tell our audience. So when you've been doing something for a number of years and you're really good at it, it becomes automatic, doesn't it? And you're going, well, this was obvious. I mean, I do this, okay? But from a client's point of view and a prospect's point of view, they don't know that. They don't know that there are 15 steps to what you're doing. They don't know that you had to study for how long before you became, how long?
5 years.
5 years? What did you study?
Bachelor of Health Science and Rehabilitation.
Okay. So with the Bachelor of Health Science and Rehabilitation, do you think that you might have a little bit more experience, background, knowledge than the person out there who joins, dare I say, Fitness First, who's done a 3-week course in personal training?
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Okay. If I came to you before this, would you have told me that?
Yes.
Okay, good. You're one of the few, all right? So,
I figure otherwise I wasted my time doing 5 years.
yeah, because if you don't tell me why I should come to you and why that you are different, how would I ever know? Okay. One of the most famous examples is a beer company out in the US that was around in the 30s, Strelitzer Beer. I don't know if you ever heard of them. Well, Strelitzer Beer in those days used to be about 34 on the pecking order, and they wanted to obviously raise their sales. And a guy called Claude Hopkins, who's a very famous marketer of his day, came along to them and said, well, tell me about making beer. How do you make beer? And, they took him through the brewery and they said, look, we have these stainless steel vats and we have this pure spring water and this, wonderful barley over here and blah, 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 blah. And we've got this whole process. And he went, fantastic. I've drunk beer all my life and I never knew how you made beer. And so he basically created this advertisement. And it talks about how you make beer and how Strelitzer actually makes beer. And it describes it in great detail. Strelitzer went from number 34, number 35 to number 2 or number 3 within about 3 years in the US market. The interesting thing, though, is every other brewery competition said we do the same thing. But nobody bothered telling anybody. So when the consumer looks at this and they go, oh, well, I didn't realize that you had to do this, 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 and this, and that's why you're so good. And that's the big irony. So when all of us, when we do things, and I'm a classic example of this, okay? So I'd be sitting down, with a prospect or even a client, and they'd say, oh, how can I write this? And I'm very good at coming up with copy, okay? And I would just go bang, 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 bang. And I'd say, that was easy, wasn't it? And then I'm getting this kick under the table, or, sometimes even worse from my wife sitting there, and she's going, it's not easy, okay? You made it look really easy, but there's 20 years, and God knows how much hard work, and we personally have spent, I don't know, about 70, 80 grand over the last 5 years out of our own pockets, okay, not some corporate, in studying this stuff. So don't say that it's easy. It's not easy. And if you say that it's easy, no matter what you do, if you say it's easy, people don't value it.
Yeah.
Because it came out too quickly. And I remember that last corporate job that I had. I went through the interview process, and it was a senior management role. And the guy who was hiring me at the end of the day, he came back and he said, a couple of people have some feedback for you. And I said, oh, really, what's that? They said you came across as too glib. You were too quick. Because you knew the answers, you didn't seem to pause to give me the answer. And they just thought, too glib, maybe too arrogant, whatever it is, okay? He says, I reckon you're not, but that's just some feedback. And it's good feedback because when somebody is asking you for something, the last thing you want to do is to come across bang, okay? You want to actually sit, think, you might have heard the question, 500 times, it doesn't matter, okay? Ooh, that's a good question. Let me think about that for a second. And then give them an answer because it makes them feel that you've actually listened to them and actually thought about it, even though you've heard this thing time and time again, and you think, oh God, not another one. Or is it question number 7? Yeah, I'll give you the answer. Yeah. So the thing you've got to do is to stop apples to apples comparisons. You cannot be the same as everybody else. And the best way to do it is to articulate what it is you do. Okay? And this is the big thing, when you ask somebody what they do and they say, oh, quality, we care, excellence, superior services, crap. That's all motherhood stuff. It's absolute motherhood stuff. Who cares? Are you honestly telling me that if you went to an organization and they weren't giving you quality, they didn't care, they didn't have excellence, they didn't have superior service, etc., that you would feel satisfied? So it's a given. So what it is that you do, so if you like, in our parlance, those things are what we'd call nominalizations. Okay, a nominalization is basically a verb that's been made into a noun and has no meaning. So if you actually take quality and you say, okay, what does quality actually mean, and make it into a process. So you take the so-called noun of quality, not that it really is, but and you say quality means that we start by, this is our manufacturing process. Let's say it's your manufacturing process, okay? It starts here in our factory where we have spent, 20 years of research and we have spent X number of $100,000 and we have all of these PhDs working, okay? Which means that the product does this, and this because we've actually researched the market and we can guarantee that no matter where your boat is in the world, we'll be able to find it, okay? Because that's what I want. It's out in the ocean somewhere. I want to be able to find this thing, okay? Things like ISO 9001 is another one. I've got clients who go, oh, we've got the ISO 9001 tick, and I say, well, that doesn't mean anything, because something like an ISO 9001, just in case you ever come across it, it just means that you said that your process was going to be this. It doesn't have to be a good process. And the fact that you do the process, even though it's a lousy process, means you get the ISO 9001. They're far better quality systems.
It's like the hard tick on food.
Yeah, it's a hard tick on food, exactly. Okay? So if you can explain to me what full service really means. Full service really means when I drive come into your gym, I am greeted at the front desk by somebody who actually knows my name, knows my whole history, knows my family, knows the fact that the dog died, okay, whatever, okay, and says, listen, Josh, the last time you were here, we did this, and this. Looking at your program, I was actually thinking about you and looking at your program and where you want to go because you said you wanted to be in that Ironman, 3 months from now. This is what I reckon we should be doing now. Do you think Josh would appreciate that?
Yes.
But how many gyms do you go to that would actually do that normally? They wouldn't know.
And no one else.
No, most wouldn't, okay?
They do send you things.
Yeah, actually,
updates.
Virgin's got really good service as well.
Okay. The good ones will do it, all right? But the vast majority where you're just cattle fodder, it's fitness first, that's, okay. So if you communicate in ways that a real person, as in a real human being who's a skin bank full of emotions, can relate to, you will do a lot better. So this is the other major issue. Today's world, nobody believes anything, okay? It's one of the major impediments to getting a sale. We're all thinking, will the solution work? Will it work for me? Is it cost effective? I don't want to be a pioneer. Pioneers get arrows in their back, as you're riding along in the old Indians. Prospects want proof that your solution will work for them. And the best way is to do it via testimonials and case studies, okay? So there are a number of ways you can do that. So one is, people will have Facebook pages and they will have all sorts of things where they can put testimonials and case studies. But what we do is, part of what we do is we actually ring clients and have a live conversation with them and talk about what they like, what they don't like, where you can improve. We test hypotheses out on them sometimes.
So you call existing customers?
We call existing customers.
And get feedback from
Yes, yes.
Okay, so you do have a set questionnaires that you ask them?
We have a set of questions that we customize for each person, and then it's just a conversation. So very often people will answer a lot of the questions just in the conversation. Okay.
That's a great idea.
The reason we do it, and we do it for every new client we take on, before we do anything, any marketing, any sales, anything, I want to know why people come to them. I want to know what they're doing well and where they can improve. And interestingly enough, I mean, some of these conversations can take up to an hour. People will actually spend an hour talking to either me or Barbara. Okay? They're pretty in-depth. And these are not...
Third party, aren't you?
Yeah, and we're a third party. And because we're a third party, people will tell us things that they won't tell you directly because they don't want to.
Get a third party to call for us if we don't have a budget.
Hello.
I know, but you cost money.
Well, yeah. Anybody who is going to do a professional job is going to cost money. Yes.
Business, they have
Yes.
money.
All
So you
people
can
have
do
money.
feedback
You said
yourself.
food.
You could do the feedback yourself. You can ask them.
Yeah,
Yeah, you can ask them.
you won't get as honest.
You won't get an honest. No, that's not necessarily true. You may well, but it's always easier to talk to a third party because they will tell you stuff. I've had people say, "Oh, don't really tell them that." Yeah, right. I say, you're not helping them if you don't tell them.
Oh,
Okay.
exactly.
And people are very happy to talk. Even people, even people who say that they don't have any time will very often spend 15, 20, half an hour with you. I mean, I've had senior high school principals in the Catholic high school system in Victoria spend upwards an hour with me on the phone in their holidays. So that gives you some indication. Okay. So with the third-party endorsements, where do you use them? Obviously, you put them everywhere. You put them on your website because that's where people are going to go. You put them on your sales letters, your advertisements, wow packs we'll talk about a bit later. But you've got to have them. Because it's like this old thing. If you're walking down, some place where you haven't been before and you're looking for somewhere to eat, and you walk past the restaurant and somebody walks out of the restaurant, or the spruiker's standing. Melbourne's great for this. The spruiker's standing outside the restaurant saying, "Come into my restaurant, it's the best restaurant on the street." Do you believe him? No. You walk a bit further and somebody walks out of the restaurant, looks like they just had a nice meal there, and you stop them and say, "Excuse me, is it any good?" And you say, "Absolutely, you need to go in. Had a fantastic meal." Do you believe him?
Yeah.
Okay. What you didn't know, it was the chef.
That's right.
So what's the difference?
It's third party.
Exactly.
Somebody else.
Yeah. Especially in this culture. So we are a far more European culture than an American culture. In America, you're expected to stand up, stand on the chair and shout and say, "I'm the best, I'm fantastic, come and talk to me, come and talk to me." And if you didn't do that, they think there's something wrong with you. In this culture, if you start doing that, they think wanker. I mean, that's the long and the short of it.
So do you recommend YouTube testimonials of customers?
Absolutely. You can do it as video. They will do it for you. One of the best things to do is you can either get them to just stand to a camera and say, "Hey, listen, I did this, and this," and we teach people how to do that. Or you can get someone to actually interview them, like me, and we interview them on camera, which that means it's a live conversation, and we actually get them steer the conversation we want to steer it, and then Danny will effectively edit it. Okay, so that's another option. Another option is we simply just talk to them on the phone. I record them.
Yeah.
It gets written up as to bullet points, and that gets converted into a case study, which can be a couple of pages long, sometimes can be longer, or just a testimonial.
Yeah.
Some of these are quite long, some of them quite short, and you'd be surprised. I mean, we did one for a RT, or registered training organization, which does high risk training. So cranes, cherry pickers, chainsaws, all of that sort of stuff. And I'm talking to OH&S type people, and some of these conversations only went for 5 minutes, and I'm thinking, this is like pulling teeth. But we still managed to get half a page of testimonial out.
So with my testimonials, I've always asked them to email me so it's in their words. Is it? But then you've then got to
No, okay.
get them to do it, and that.
They won't do it,
Well,
okay?
they do.
They do. Some do.
But
Some
it's
do.
not as many as I would like to
Yeah.
get because it then.
If you call them and you write it up, I would actually say 99% of the time they make no changes, okay? Or they might just say, look, can you change that line here, or can
so
you change
just
that
send
word?
it to them?
I send it back to them.
Okay.
You could basically, if you know what you've done for them,
Yeah.
you could write the thing for them, send it to them and say, look, is that okay?
Yeah.
Most of the time they'll say yes, or change a word here, change a word there. All right, so the next thing we'll move on to is a guarantee. All right, so what's your guarantee? And why do you need a guarantee? Okay? So you buy a product in this country, there's always a statutory warranty for at least a year. You know, you've got legal stuff. But what else could you do as a guarantee? If you've got a service, for example, what can you guarantee? So remember Pixel, the photographic lab? So they deal with professional photographers, and they had this attitude that professional photographers were all sharks. And that they would take them to the cleaners and this, that, and the other, really difficult to deal with, blah, 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 blah. And you know, it was a real case of headbutting with them and saying, okay, well, what really happens in this business? I said, well, okay, so what happens when a professional photographer doesn't like the prints that you've produced? Talking to the operations manager, we redo it. We work with them. We work with them until they're happy. I said, oh, is that right? I said, has there ever been a case where you haven't worked with them and they haven't ended up being happy? And they said, no, never. I said, okay. I said, so how about we make your guarantee 110%? So we will give you 110% back of what you paid us if you're not entirely happy. And they just went, ugh, can't do that. Sharks. We get taken to the cleaners. Be out of business tomorrow. Butthead, 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 butthead. Okay? They went into one of the major trade fairs. This is a few years ago now. It's about 10 years ago. And put up a massive banner saying, Pixel Perfect, the only people with 110% money-back guarantee. I tell you what, they had a swarm of people come to that
So what was
stand.
their asterisk to cover themselves?
Nothing.
Nothing. So
Nothing.
They didn't have it in a period of time?
Nothing.
Like that?
Nothing. Okay? They had a swarm of people come and say, oh, I really like that guarantee. In 10 years, because I'm very good friends with the owner, okay? In 10 years, they have had not one person ever claim on that guarantee.
Wow.
Okay? So the point is, if you're going to do something anyway, why don't you make it into a benefit, a feature and a benefit, and tell people that you're going to do it? Why, you know, you're doing it anyway, okay? There's another case where boot makers, so they made Aussie boots. I can't remember the exact name of the company, but they do work boots. And the guy working with them said, look, is there a guarantee on these things? He said, look, come on, you know, how can we guarantee this? You know, they go out in building sites, they get damaged, whatever. He said to the boot maker, you know, the little guy, the old you know, chap who used to repair them, he says, well, what happens when they have a problem? He says, oh, I just fix it, and, you know, send it back. I said, oh, is that right? Okay. So how about you guarantee the boots for the lifetime of the boot? Of course, the owners all went, can't do that. That's impossible. No way. Until they came around. Because the boots were being fixed anyway. So why not tell your audience, your customers, what you do anyway, but they didn't know, okay? That company had massive growth just because of that. Because people could come along and say, look, you know, I mean, I've damaged the boot in some way. Oh, yeah, we'll fix it, that's fine. What percentage did they have to fix? It's minuscule. But what's the positive PR that people get? What's the peace of mind that I would get knowing that if I bought that product and something went wrong, they would fix it? Okay? Here's a funny one. You know, I mean, I don't know if you know any of the online people like oo.com.au. They do all of these specials.
I used to,
Yeah. Well, we get stuff from, you know, I get at least one email from them a day, okay?
Yeah.
And we bought stuff. And I think the funniest one, we bought a steam cleaner, you know, one of these little steam cleaners, a bit of a toy at the end of the day, anyway. And I looked at all the reviews, and the reviews were reasonably good. And you can always tell them they're genuine because there'll be a bad review somewhere. And, you know, anyway, so we bought this thing.
Unhappy customers.
Yeah, there's always going to be somebody
Yeah.
that says it doesn't work. But most of the customers here were happy with it. And it was about $60. Okay, so I said, fine. And, you know, 2-3 days later, I mean, their service is excellent. 2-3 days later, this thing turns up. And, you know, it worked for a while, and then one day it just decided to die. And I said, okay, what are we going to do? So, you know, Barbara sends him an email. Almost immediately, we got an email back saying, listen, we've spoken to the manufacturer. The manufacturer doesn't actually want you to send it back. It's too much hassle. If you can actually smash it and take a photograph of it and send the photograph so that we know that you've actually destroyed it, we'll replace it. And this is how you do it. So she said, look, just put a towel over it, get a hammer, and smash it. You know, so that the stuff doesn't, you know, because it's steel, but it's encased in.
Shipping things back and forth,
Yeah,
it's costing
exactly. It's
so
costing
much
so much money.
Yeah.
And I said, great. Took it under the house, put a towel on it, well, smash. Took a photograph, sent it. 2 or 3 days later, we had a new one. Now that's service, okay? Every time we've had an issue with them, it's been fixed immediately. Aldi was another one. We bought one of those comb binders. Oh, I hate those comb binders. You know, these things, you know, we keep, you know, the first one kept, you know, ripping the paper and it wouldn't put the, you know, holes in the right place. And we rang them up and they said, oh, look, you know, ring this other mob who supplies it. They said, fine. Don't bother sending it back. We'll send you a better model. The second model did the same thing. Rang them up. Said, don't bother sending it up. We'll send you a third one. They sent us 4 different comb binders. So we had all these comb binders that sort of don't work sitting in the house.
Just sort of leave it.
Yeah. But if you give good customer service, it's great. Now, All Heads, they're another really interesting organization because they remanufacture a cylinder head. So, you know, your car cylinder head, if a piston rod goes or a head gasket goes, well, you're, you know, in a bit of trouble. All right, it's going to cost you a fair bit of money. So you go down to your local garage and they're going to charge you anywhere between $3,000 and $5,000. And if it's a BMW, well, it might be 15 or 20 grand, okay? Back in 2000, when the GST came in, these guys, suddenly their business went through the floor because it was cheaper to import a car, a second-hand car from Japan, than to fix it. And so they went, what are we going to do? And the same mentor that we shared, the same guy who did the work with the boot people, said to them, listen, you've got to have a decent guarantee. So their guarantee is quite significant. So imagine giving somebody the cylinder head as a mechanic and saying to them, you install it, and if you stuff it up, we'll still take responsibility. So obviously, you know, if they make a mistake, they're guaranteed to fix the mistake, which is normal statutory stuff that you have in this country. But it's the second one where if they make a mistake, as in the mechanic buying it makes a mistake. And then, of course, there's the no-blow gasket guarantee. So if any time during the life of the warranty it basically goes, they'll replace it, plus they'll pay for your cost to do the work, okay? So it's not just that I give you a new part, but I actually pay for you, you know, any sort of reasonable out-of-pocket expenses. That's not bad. They also have a loyalty program. Just remind me to talk about that a bit later. So these are some of the things we can help you with. I mean, we work with a bunch of organizations, anything from not quite sole traders generally, all the way up to multinationals where, you know, like Kempi and Huretz, Kulsa. And we work on positioning in the marketing, your USP, you know, how do you actually differentiate yourself, how to create a guarantee, how to generate the testimonials and case studies. And basically the generating testimonials and case studies is a standalone product. We can do that for people, just standalone. To do a case study, testimonial, it's $220 per case study or testimonial, okay, which includes phoning them, writing up the raw stuff, writing up the final. So it's quite cost effective. So let's move on to more marketing. So a fundamental question. We all know some of the brands there, and they spend a lot of money. Anyone here remember the big Australian, you know, BHP, you know, they used to have these massive vistas of television advertising, and you've got the big Australian and, you know, trucks and wide open landscape, and you're going, well, what are they selling? What are they actually selling? Well, maybe they're selling the fact that you should invest in them. I don't know, but I certainly wasn't going to buy anything. Or in our sort of business, you've got direct marketing, because in our businesses, we don't have the sorts of budgets that run into the millions. I mean, for instance, if you look at a Super Bowl ad, 30 seconds, I think what is it, about $3 million?
The amount is amazing.
Yeah. And if people have actually studied Super Bowl ads, and people will say, oh, I love the ad. What was the product though?
Completely.
They have no idea what the
These
product
days,
was.
everyone just fast forwards ads.
Yeah,
Because we record on TV.
yeah. But even with the Super Bowl, where you actually, the ads are a big feature of the thing. People don't actually, they remember the ad, but they don't remember what the product was. So what's the point? Yeah. So in our world, I'm just interested in having this big, giant magnet that sucks up the right people, and this is the key. Okay? You do not want everybody in your market. And something that I realized many years ago is the faster you could qualify people out as being the wrong people and polarize them. So you polarize them just like a magnet. You polarize positive and negative. So some people you just want to get rid of, and you want to attract the right people because you want to be able to spend time with the people you want to spend time with, not with all the other time wasters out there. And it's not that they're time wasters as people. They're just going to waste your time. They're not your market. They're somebody else's market. Okay? So brand and image is very expensive. It's very untargeted, and it's very difficult to measure because you don't actually know who came in because of your ad. Okay? So you don't actually know what that person cost you to get over the line. And then in the longer presentation we do, we actually talk a little bit about the lifetime value of a client. And the example I give is my wife Barbara, who for the last 13 years has been going to see a hairdresser in Australia Square, which would be right there. Okay? And she went there on a referral because, she came here, she didn't know anybody. That's where the people in the office were going. And she stayed with this guy, okay? So now, let's say that she spends around $150 a time every 2 months. We worked out that she, by herself, had spent approximately over 12 years, she'd spent about about 15,000 or something like that, about 15, 20,000. And if you looked at, by the time she'd given a couple of referrals, he had actually made about 40 or 50,000. Okay? So our thing is very much educational, direct response marketing. And educational is the key word here, okay? Because in every market, unless it's a commodity, unless we're talking, even soap powder, you really should educate your market as to why I should buy your soap powder over somebody else's soap powder, even though most soap powder is probably the same. But if you went for, there are a couple of people in our networking group who do some sort of organic, product, okay? New Ways, I think it is. And they need to educate people as to why, whatever toothpaste you're using is poisonous, and you should be using this one. Not that I swallow my toothpaste, so I'm not, Even though it's a commodity, at the end of the day, you still got to explain to people why I should come to you over somebody else, okay? So with direct response, it's highly targeted because you're targeting people that are likely to want your stuff. So whether you're targeting with direct mail or direct fax, and believe it or not, fax still works extremely well. We get lots of clients of fax today in 2013.
Do you own
Okay.
fax?
Yep.
You do? Wow.
You can, I don't have a physical fax anymore. I do, but it's part of the printer.
Yeah, I have a scanner, but
It comes in via
A
email,
lot of our
okay?
companies ask us for fax.
Yeah.
do they?
Yeah, people still use fax.
Haven't been asked
Yeah.
for fax for years.
Yeah, it's still on my business card.
Okay.
Yeah. So direct response. So if you were going to advertise in a magazine, or you're going to advertise on Google AdWords, or even Facebook or LinkedIn or wherever it is, direct response is asking them to do something. Okay? So a normal advertisement is, oh, look at this wonderful chair, and isn't it wonderful, blah, 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 but they don't actually ask you to call me or ask for some more information about it, why this chair would be more ergonomic than that chair, and if you've got this particular spinal problem, why you should be buying this one. Okay? That's the education part of it. And because you can measure how many people have actually come through the door and asked for something, you know what your cost of acquisition is. And if you know what your cost of acquisition is, then you know how much you can spend on the ad. And cost of acquisition, by the way, is not just the first sale. Okay? So how much did this person spend over the lifetime? So let's say, Barbara's hairdresser, let's say, he's made 50 grand. Could he afford to spend $1,000 knowing that he's going to make 50 grand to get a client? Theoretically, yeah. Becomes a choice. So let's move into crafting your message. All right, so what will get them to take action? So one of the things that we do extensively are sales letters. And a sales letter could be something that sits on the net. So somebody comes to your webpage and they read all of this text and say, yes, I understand what it is. It answers the pain, it answers the question why, what do I want, what am I going to get? You know, for instance, this one, okay, this is a plumber, okay? Want to double the life of your hot water tank. One of the biggest single and sudden property maintenance expenses is placing a burst hot water tank in one of your rental properties. So he is targeting people with rental properties. A new tank will set you back between $1,100 and $2,000, whereas he could put in an anode for $250. That would double the life. Okay? So it's a 2-page letter that is targeted to people in the property market. So he could have a JV with real estate agents who would then send it out to people on their rent roll, for instance, or the owners on their rent roll. Okay? The investing in property, basically that was done for somebody at the NAB. Basically spruiking her services. You know, if you were going to buy a self-managed super fund, why would you use her? Because her claim to fame was if you were going to go to the NAB to get a loan, she knew all the processes to help you get the loan faster versus somebody else from outside. So a sales letter could be anything from a couple of pages to white papers, which we do, which some of them go to 18 and 20 pages. Basically the same sort of format. You can have a look at them afterwards. But basically, they all answer the question why. They all answer the question, you know, why should I be interested? They're very specific on a market. So they're designed to polarize. They're designed to get the ones you want, get rid of the ones you don't want. And the ones you want to answer the question why, what are the pain points, what do they want, talk about what it is that you do, how you do it, and a call to action. And what happens if they actually take action. And people say to me, oh, well, who's going to read 18 pages? If you're interested, you'll read 18 pages. You'll read 20 pages. You'll read 30 pages. Okay? It's not about the number of pages. It's about getting the number of words in there that actually articulate what it is you do in a way that your audience goes, I'm interested.
So how do you do a call to action?
A call to action could be as simple as call here. You know, if you go to if you watch an infomercial, let's say, you know, call now, operators are waiting, 1-800 website. Okay? But that number will be a very specific number for that particular ad, or they'll have an extension on it. Or that
So
website.
do a promo and say call now and quote.
Quote an extension number.
Yeah.
It's a made up number, but at least you know that if they say that extension,
You know that your initiative worked or not.
you know it worked or
You
not.
can track it.
You can track. Because if you don't do that, you don't know what worked. And if you don't know what worked, well, what's the point of doing it? Okay? The white papers that we write are basically, one of our specialities, let me put it this way, one of our specialities is taking complex products and services and simplifying them in words that your target market would say, I get it, I understand, I know what that is. Okay? So, an example there, the SDI is a psychometric tool. It's like an MBTI or DISC, if you're familiar with any of those. But basically, workplace conflict costs. And Medibank, a couple of years ago, said $10.1 billion a year in Australia alone. Somebody else said to me, a mediator said, well, actually, somebody came up with another study that said it was $34 billion a year in conflict. So people not getting on at work. So how do you actually explain to a senior executive or a learning and development manager in a large organization that this is a tool that they need? So I actually read a whole book on the damn subject. I mean, I know a fair bit about the subject. I've got a background in the area. But I actually read a whole book that they published on it. I did a huge amount of research and came up with all of this. Then I also rang a number of the consultants that actually use the tool, including the leading professor at Auckland University who runs the MBA program. And he spent an hour with me on Skype, and at the end of it he says, oh, Rashid, thank you very much for spending that time with me. And I'm going, hang on, Andrew, you spent the time with me. I said, no, it was really great. Yeah, that's the sort of stuff that we get out when we talk to people. And basically we put together all of this stuff that talks about the product, what it is that you get, why you should be using them. And we've done it in all sorts of different markets. So there's that, I'm just working with a client, you know, the one who coaches high schools in Victoria. 20 pages on why they should be looking at this particular program. We have interviewed, I don't know, 10 or 12 different high school principals, both here and the UK, about the results. And the results are spectacular. Now, it's not a cheap program. It's 25 grand for the first year. And then we've just extended it for another year and another year. So it goes 25, probably 15, probably 10. So just by that, I've already increased his back-end sales by a significant portion because he was finishing it the first year. Yet, his clients were saying, actually, we need more help. Now, he would never have known that unless I made the phone calls and talked to them. And now, he had a conference in March, and he's got another one starting now with, one was primary schools, one was high schools coming up now. And he said the consistent feedback from people was they really enjoyed reading that stuff and getting the material and the emails we were sending them. Now, not too many people will actually say that, for marketing stuff. The other thing that you must do are newsletters. Remember Kempe? The welding company? Kempe, we put on our list a number of years ago because they were exhibiting at National Manufacturing Week. Okay? And one day, December, I get this phone call from the managing director, Chris Oak. And the first thing he says to me, I kid you not, the first thing he says to me is, Rashid, I have to apologize. I said, Chris, I don't know. Who are you? Why do you need to apologize? He says, I have been receiving your emails for 2 years, and I keep hitting delete until I saw this one. And I needed what you had to say today. And he said, what can you do? And I said, fine, we can do a strategy day. He said, how much is it going to cost? I went, bear in mind, I have never met him. This is the first time I have spoken to him. I said, it's going to be 5,000 plus GST. 10 minutes into the conversation, he said, done.
Did you go down or shut down?
I thought, damn, I should have asked him for more.
No, I'm just kidding.
Okay, so we did the day. He got a really good result, etc. A few months later, they were in Campbelltown at that point. And a few months later, Barbara and I were going down to Canberra just for the weekend sort of thing. And she said, oh, look, we're going to be driving right past them. Why don't we stop? Why don't you give them a ring? And why don't we stop there? Okay, and say hi. And I'm going, no. And she kept insisting. Okay? And so I phoned him up and he said, oh, yeah, sure. Yeah, come on over. So we went on over and we found that they were going to be exhibiting at National Manufacturing Week in May. That was a couple of months away. And we said, okay, so what are you doing pre? What are you doing during? What are you doing post? Oh, nothing. And oh, by the way, you guys are all tradespeople or ex-tradespeople. What are you wearing? Because they're not exactly well dressed. I said, don't know. So Barbara says, look, I'll tell you what, why don't we outfit you? So we spent part of the weekend in Canberra running around R.M. Williams and all of the other stores, and we actually found stuff, and they actually upgraded it. Chris actually liked the shoes so much that he actually upgraded the shoes and this, that, and the other. Anyway, so we did that, and that's when they had the second best month ever in their history, and that led to a whole consulting gig, which got them to being the second highest profitable, most profitable subsidiary. All from a newsletter that went out consistently. Okay?
So consistently could just be once a month?
It could be once a month. There is the 90-day rule. Okay? There is a woman called Wendy Evans, and she's written a great book. It's called How to Win. It's along the lines of how to win as much business as you like and keep it for a lifetime, along those lines. But you'll find her if you do a search for Wendy Evans. Okay? Wendy Evans used to work for people like Saki and Saki, Thomas Cook Travel, a whole bunch of people. She's an Australian, but she used to work worldwide. And she realized the 90-day rule. And the 90-day rule is people will forget you on day 91, even if they're a client. Somebody else comes along with something that they like, want, whatever, on that particular day, they go, oh, this is really fantastic. 90 days was the key. The worst example, and I've had it happen to me, believe it or not, I've even had my own clients, even though they get my stuff once a bloody week, still go, oh, Rashid, I didn't think of you. I'm going, what? But the worst example I came across was this guy. We were talking about this. He was a printer. And he rang me after a newsletter and he said, oh, well, that happened to me. And I said, oh, tell me what happened. He said he'd been working with this client for 20 years, been doing business cards, letterhead, all of that sort of stuff. And he walked into this guy's premises and he saw all of this stuff, whatever it was over here, and he said, well, who did all of that? He says, oh, this guy phoned me up. I was looking for something. I found him. He did that. He said, but I do that. Why didn't you come to me? And he said, but I didn't know you did it. $500,000 order.
That's sad.
It's sad, isn't it?
Yeah.
Okay?
That would hurt.
The point is, you've got to keep in touch with people on a regular basis, okay? And what can you send them? One of the best things is stories from other clients, okay? So if you've got a client with a boat who's gone somewhere and done something, interview them.
Okay.
Get some photographs.
Okay.
Because other people with boats are interested in where these people have done with their boats and where they've gone. It's not a struggle to find content. In your particular case, Ben, interview people who've gone into some Ironman competition or something else, so they've got some really great results.
iPhones these days.
So the fundamental rule is we buy on emotion and we justify with logic. All purchasing decisions are made somewhere on emotion. However, the mistake is not to give people the logical reasons as to why they made a good decision. For them, or whoever else they need to justify it to. So you might have to justify it to yourself and you go, oh, I really wanted that. Now I'm not looking for all the reasons why I should have bought it so that I can justify it to myself or my spouse or peers. So you've got to give people that emotional justification as well as that logical justification, okay? And when it comes to rapport, we like doing business with people we know, like, and trust, okay? So your goal is to establish a connection as fast as possible and meet them in their model of the world. And the best way of establishing a connection is just through being nice at the end of the day.
Common courtesy goes a long way.
Common courtesy goes a very long way, yeah. I mean, if we were doing a sales training, I'd go through a whole bunch of stuff that you do to actually get rapport with somebody very, very quickly. And then figure out what it is that their buying criteria really are, how to get them into a buying trance, literally, because we're all in a trance all the time. We're just moving from one to another, so it's not a negative. And actually help them realize what it is that they really want so that if you provide it, they would be happy. And the key here is, a lot of people think sales is manipulation. Well, everything is manipulation at the end of the day. We're always manipulating. The point is, sorry?
Is it driving children? They manipulate.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. They're past masters at it. At the end of the day, if what you are selling is ethical and you firmly believe that it is going to help them, then if you don't do everything that you can in your power to get it into their hands, you're not helping them at the end of the day. It's only unethical when you know that it's crap and they're going to go, why did I buy this? Yeah. Okay? So you've got to figure out what's motivating people. Now, this is once again a very complex subject, but I'm just going to break it down into a small chunk here. We're all motivated by pain and pleasure. Things we want and things we want to avoid. And it is context dependent. So sometimes we're motivated by things we want and other times we're motivated by things we want to get away from. Okay? So depending on what your product or service is, you need to know whether it's something that they want or something that they want to avoid. And one example could be, kids' education. So why do you want your kids to get a good education?
To give them a good gift in life.
Okay? And that will ultimately help them do what?
Fulfill their goals.
Mm-hmm. Okay?
Be able to enjoy their life.
Okay. So that's a very towards orientation. Okay? The opposite could be, I don't want them to have to struggle through life. And I don't want them to feel that I didn't do everything that I could possibly do to help them. Okay? Now, if I was selling an education product, I would hit both of those. Because you don't know which way somebody is going to go. Okay? The thing is, when somebody's got a towards orientation, and this is context dependent, so different things will have different contexts. Be towards in some things and away from in something else. You want to be able to, there's no point in, with somebody with a towards orientation, there's no point in giving them an away from orientation. So don't say that, well, you want to avoid this, and this, and that's why you're doing it, because all that's going to do is piss them off.
So how do you know?
You ask those questions. You ask them what they want. What do you want in it? And if they say they want something, then you ask the next question, and that will give you what. If that's a negative that they're moving away from. So let's say, in your example, you said you want to give the kids a good education because of?
To live an educated
Okay, so you believe in education, and let's say that the next. And I said, okay, so what will education give them? Now let's just say, for argument's sake, then you then said, well, they wouldn't lose the house. Okay, that actually isn't away from.
Yeah.
So the first thing was the towards, but the real, and okay, so they wouldn't lose the house, and if they lost the house, what would happen? Well, they'd be on the street, and I wouldn't want that. Okay. But when you ask the question, you can elicit the answer. Yeah. So if somebody comes along and says, well, the first question is, what do you want? If I'm sitting down with somebody, the first question I ask, why are you here? And they say, but isn't it obvious? You call the meeting.
What about if you're at a show?
Then the urgency. Okay. So if there is a problem, if you determine that there's a problem, how long has it been happening? And that goes to exactly the same for anything written, by the way. You can do this verbally, you can do this in writing. Okay? So how long has it been happening? Because if there's no urgency, if there's no pain, people won't do anything. People are motivated by pain.
Yeah.
If there's a fire, you will do something.
Yeah.
Okay?
That's so true.
So you need to rack up the pain.
Okay.
What's it going to cost when your boat is broken into? What is it going to cost when you rip a muscle because you have not had the right training and the right supervision? It means that dream of going to the Boston Marathon this year, or now next year, has gone down the tube. That's the cost, okay? So here's the dream. The dream is going to the Boston Marathon. What's the cost of not doing something? What have you done to try and fix it? Oh, okay, so you've got a security guard on your boat. What's that costing you? For a fraction of what you're doing and losing sleep at night and thinking about what's going on, we can put this little box in that will do all of this for you so that you get peace of mind, knowing that if something happens, you will be alerted. And we guarantee it, by the way. And our guarantee is, if for any reason you don't get alerted, we will pay any cost to make it good. Now, you can get insurance for that, by the way.
Oh, can you?
You can get insurance for anything as long as you want to pay the premium. Okay? I can guarantee you will find a broker who can get it. If you can't, tell me and I'll find you one.
Okay, cool.
Okay? But that's the sort of thing you need to say to them. If you're going to stand behind your product, what is the worst thing that can happen if they've got this product? How likely is it? 1 in a million. Okay? Stand behind it. Action or inaction. What will happen if they don't fix it? What's the cost of the issue of fixing? May well be greater than the cost of doing nothing. That's where your 50% of sales don't happen because they don't actually want to do anything. It's harder,
It's
the
following
pain,
them up.
it's holding them up.
Cool.
Yeah.
Following people up. It's
Following
amazing.
people up. Okay?
Follow them up. You tell me to call them once time. I call them
Yeah.
once time.
All right. Remember, what's in it for me, not you. All right? As a salesperson,
Yeah. Okay.
1 mouth, 2 ears. Okay? Most people talk. Don't. Listen. Ask questions. The person who asks the questions controls the conversation. It's as simple as that. And then emotions. We all bow in emotions and justify with logic. So what you need to do is to future pace into their emotions. So let's assume that it's a year from now and that you've achieved you're at the Boston Marathon and you've just finished it. Tell me how you feel right now.
Proud.
Proud,
Fantastic.
fantastic.
You want it
And
to
you
be straight
realize,
and tell
that all of that hard work that you and I put together has paid off. And that decision that you made today to start was one of the best decisions of your life. Sign here, press hard, 3 copies. Okay? It's no different. All your friends have lost their boats. Yours is still there, and you're going, ha. For the sake of, how much is this thing?
$1,000.
Sake of $1,000. How much is your boat? Yeah, okay. So if you do a percentage,
Have
okay?
more bathrooms on their boat than my house.
Yeah.
Yeah, exactly.
Amazing.
Exactly.
So they've got the money to spend. What's
Yeah.
$1,000 to
But
do?
some of them are so tight.
Yeah.
Okay. So now you've got to get in front of them. All right. So now this is for bigger players. I will say that. Okay. You've got to have a system. If you're going to do direct mail, you're going to do pull advertising, which is both offline, online. You've got to be able to send people to your website, and you've got to have a CRM that can capture this stuff. Okay.
Yeah.
Now there are levels of CRM. There's the low end stuff that basically gets a direct mail something off your website. Somebody signs up for a newsletter. it will automatically send out send out leads, okay? So an autoresponder. So any number of those for anything from free, don't recommend them, to $99 a month, all right? Essentially, if you're serious and you have a lot of leads coming in, you need a decent CRM that will automatically follow up the leads and automatically say that, hey, listen, somebody came in today, then they're going to go on this sequence and they're going to get this, and this. And depending on where they came in and where they came from and what they looked on our website, it might even trigger a phone call from a salesperson. It might trigger some other information. The statistic is the faster you get back to somebody, the better you have a chance of closing them in a deal, okay? And I think it was something equally ridiculous, like it was actually minutes. If you got back to them within 2 or 3 minutes of them making the inquiry, you had 1,000% more chance than 2 weeks later. I mean, we ring people back.
Money 2 weeks later.
No, we ring people back, and usually the same day. Generally speaking. I mean, I don't sit around. I don't walk around looking at my phone and my email. Trust me, I don't. Okay, I'm not in the office. I'm not in the office. I'll contact you when I get back. Okay, it's usually within the day, and people will always say, "Rashid, thank you for being so prompt and getting back to me."
It's the best thing, though.
Because people just don't get back to you.
Australia's shocking.
It's shocking.
People don't turn up.
So, where are you going to send people? You're going to send people to your website. Today, you're going to send them to your website, okay? And you've got to have copy that immediately smacks them in the face with what's in it for me. So not welcome to my website. Do not put these huge banner images that scroll, that take up most of the space on your front page so you can't see anything below the fold. Who cares? Okay? If you can hit me straight in the eyes with the pain I'm feeling or what I want, I'm likely to keep reading because you've got 2 or 3 seconds to capture my attention. All right? So you've got to have decent sales copy. If you've got white papers, put them on there. Case studies, definitely. Testimonials, the newsletter, blog needs to go on there. Your guarantee. And this last one, contact details. For heaven's sake, put a phone number on there.
I put it on every page.
Put it on every page. Put them up the top, right-hand corner, right at the top, in big, bold, whatever, okay? But put them everywhere that people can see them. It's nothing worse. So let's move into push direct mail. It's extremely effective if targeted correctly, okay? But you must send it multiple times. Remember that guy with the investment company out here who wanted to send things to high net worth individuals in the eastern suburbs? I said, how many times are you going to send this? He said, once. I said, I shouldn't be taking your money. I'll take your money because you are silly enough to give it to me. I literally said that to him. He sent it once because he wasn't paying for the postage. He wasn't paying for the printing. Company was. Got no response. Got no response, all right? I said, when are you sending it again?
It's the exact same thing again.
You can send the exact same thing 2, 3, 4, 5 times, all right? I'd actually done a couple of versions for him. But he didn't do that. He actually sent it to another demographic and then stopped, okay? So the funny story is, years ago I was talking about this to a client of mine. He was an insurance broker, and he said, it's exactly that, Rashid. In sales we know that it's 5, 9, 10, 15 touches before somebody does something. You've got to hear about things from all sorts of different ways, all right? First time this guy got this, whatever it was, letter, he threw it in the bin. Didn't even open it, threw it in the bin. Second time, didn't open it, threw it in the bin. Third time, opened it, threw it in the bin. Fourth time, opened it, read it, threw it in the bin. Fifth time, opened it, read it, put it on the shelf and said, if there's a 6th time, I'll buy the thing. There never was.
Oh, that's not very fair. Poor fuckers are out of money because we'll stand.
Hey.
And half the forest in the world have been chopped down.
Exactly.
We've had clients, the longest somebody had been on our newsletter list before becoming a client was 11 years.
I've been told, someone told me to put something so that when they feel in the envelope, they can feel something in there.
Lumpy
It's a
mail.
rock
Yeah.
or something, so that people actually open it to see what it is.
Why do you think we send things like this hard copy? They cost a lot of money to send hard copy, but we'll express mail it or we'll courier it.
Yeah.
Okay? Another thing you could do, depending on your audience, is you can even send them, tradespeople. You send them morning tea to the factory. You think they like it? Of course they like it. Okay? So, you must send it multiple times. They must ask them to do something. Download a white paper, call you, get a free review, something. Okay? And if you follow up with a phone call, if it's a reasonable package and you follow up with a phone call, it raises your return rate by about 30%. So this is not where you send 1,000 or 2,000 things out because you've got no chance of following it up unless you have a major call center. Okay? It's like Westpac, okay? They keep sending us this stuff. And then 6 months later, somebody will get on the phone and say, oh, we sent you this stuff. And I'm going, what stuff?
Yeah, exactly.
Okay? Do I care? I don't even remember. You wasted your money.
So that would be sort of more to a smaller demographic. Or
It's a
not,
more,
so that
it's a small
would make
demographic
sense
that you
to
makes
the
sense to do.
rural
Yeah.
electricians that we're trying to get
Yeah.
into.
And then you phone them.
Do them and phone
Yeah.
them after. Okay.
Use SMS because they'll all have mobile phones. That's
Yeah.
what they work on. Okay, don't bother ringing their landlines. You'll get the wife or the whoever in the office. Ring them on their mobile or send them an SMS. Okay, SMS is still get open 98, 97%
Yeah.
of the time these days. Okay, fax, as we said, works really well depending on your demographic.
Yeah.
Okay, then you've got pull advertising. Pull advertising is anything in a magazine, anything in a newspaper, and anything online. So online, yellow pages, pull advertising. You know, somebody's going looking. I'm going to call you. This is Google. So this is Google search. There's Google content. This is Google search. Google search is those 3 ads up the top if they appear and the 7 or 8 ads down the side if they appear on a standard page. The advantage of this is if no one clicks, you don't get charged.
Oh, okay.
Okay? And you can target exactly what your audience is. Now, having said that, there's a major science behind this. I review a lot of Google AdWords accounts, and most of them are throwing away money because they have one ad, they target every country in the world, even though they only want customers from here. The keyword targeting is wrong. They mix up the search and content campaigns. They do all sorts of
If you were going to
things.
do this, you'd have to pay someone to do it for you because it'd be
Yeah.
mad.
You'd be mad to do it yourself unless you really wanted to spend a lot of time and a lot of money. Okay, I mean we spent a lot of money on this stuff, and we've got lots of clients of it. Okay, but we know exactly what we're doing. It's not for the faint-hearted. Oh, you can, but you'll end up, people start something and they let it go. Yeah, right. A few $1,000s later. Then there's content advertising, which is of course things like in newspapers or magazines. Google, which is the ads that if you're on a website, you'll see little banner ads or ads by Google. That's content. So that's like you're browsing somewhere and you see something of interest. So with you, it could be really good because you're going, fitness, cross-training. You tell Google, these are the things I'm interested in. It finds sites for you where people in that demographic are likely to be. Same with boat owners.
Kind of like our SEO service that we got.
Well, SEO is different. SEO actually tries to get you to the top of the rankings. Now, the problem with that is every time Google changes its algorithm,
Oh, right, yeah, okay.
it's a constant battle.
okay.
It's a
Yeah.
constant battle.
Yeah.
If you want to be consistently there, you got to pay.
Yeah.
LinkedIn and Facebook can be really, really good depending on your market. Okay, LinkedIn is really good if you're targeting a corporate market. Facebook is really, really good if you've got a funky product or something out of more, not necessarily mainstream. Although, having said that, I've got a client in Brisbane who is a professional photographer who does about 7-figure business. All right, 7 figures, not 6, 7, and a very niche market. 50% of his business comes from Facebook. The rest comes from things like co-reg. So when people go to a Ticketex site and you buy a ticket, and at the end of it, it says, "Oh, you interested in this, this, and this?" You go on a list. It's an amazing source, actually.
Yeah.
So this is critical. People buy when they're ready, and your job is to be in front of them when they are. And consistent marketing is the key to achieving this. Okay. Just because you need the client, just because you're starving, just because you're desperate, and people smell desperation, like dogs smell fear. Okay? Your job is to be in front of them continually because you don't know when they're going to be ready. So, that's basically it. These are some of the things we do. You may or may not be interested, but what I would suggest is get on my newsletter list. I mean, we create overall marketing strategies, and we don't coach people. It's not about coaching, it's actually about doing it for you. Because we just figured long ago that if we just told you what to do, you'd never do it. Okay? And then for more complex stuff, we do white papers, sales letters, advertising, all of those sorts of things. Okay? And we recommend technology. Having spent 20 years in technology, I have actually set up for most of the major internet marketers in this country, I have set up the technology that underpins what they do.
Who did you work for?
I work for people like Andrew and Darryl Grant. I actually designed all of their stuff. If you know Our Internet Secrets, you ever come across them, look them up. They do millions online. A bunch of people that were their clients as well. So I've been around a long time. Okay, I know what works. A lot of these things can be done standalone. So if, for instance, you just said, look, I want to target boat owners, we can figure out how to get in front of boat owners. What do you need to send them? Or what do you need to put on the website? What sort of advertising do you need? Okay, and actually put that together. So it doesn't have to be, full blown. Yeah. Okay. And on the sales side, we actually do sales training and sales coaching. We actually go out with people, actually sell on their behalf. Not on an ongoing basis, but let's say you have a high value product or service and you're going, oh, well, I don't know how to ask the questions. I don't know what to do. I actually go out and mentor people on the job right then and there and give them feedback. Sometimes I even do it for them, take over. So it can be quite interesting when you do that. All right, and then we've got a couple of things. We actually do offer a complimentary business focus session. It's valued at $600. Pick a number. You fill out a questionnaire, which is about 19 pages. Takes on average, because we ask people, it takes on average between 2.5 and 3 hours to fill out. And people go, well, why would I want to spend that amount of time? Well, it forces you to spend time on your business because you actually have to think about what it is you really want to do. You send that to us and then we'll spend another hour and a half, maybe 2 hours, with you, giving you some advice. And then you can decide what you want to do. Or something else that's very popular are the two heads are better than one. We charge $660 for a couple of hours. And basically you can break it up into hour blocks. And we give you very short, sharp, actionable advice. We've had many people who take that up and they get really good results from that. Specific things like I want to work on my guarantee, or I want to work on a particular piece of sales copy, or I want you to review AdWords account, something like that. So that's it. I hope you found that useful.